folks, we are looking at Eavan Boland's poem Love. So in your textbook, we want to go up straight away to get used to this stuff. We want to go to page 122. It's an interesting poem. It's so typical of Boland's style. It's not an easy poem, and this video might be a bit long. I'm sure the editors will chop it down for me. Why is it typical Boland poem? It's deeply personal. It's about her relationship with her husband. It is deeply philosophical, very, very, very thoughtful. She's thinking about, issues that are personal to her life, but relevant to all of us, like the nature of love, change, what binds us in relationships. Really profound and interesting thematic concerns, which she talks about with great honesty, but which she talks about in a narrative style, which makes it accessible. The other thing the two things that I really like about this poem, both relate to her use of symbolism. Number one, there are really, really powerful metaphors in this poem, which are carefully crafted and have that magical effect of communicating a lot in very few words. And then she also in this poem, and linked this poem in your analysis to the pomegranate, she employs or utilizes or exploits her knowledge of Greek and Roman mythology just to add a little layer of complexity to the poem. And that is one of the most fascinating aspects. I'm just going to stay on that for a second. If you look in your book at page 123, you'll see the reference to Aeneas and a book called the Aeneid. This is a part of Roman mythology which is inspired by Greek mythology. Romans were very much inspired by, or stole from the Greeks in terms of their mythologies. But when she talks in the poem about Aeneas, he's the hero she refers to. She's talking about how we judge heroes. What is heroic? And what she's doing in making that reference is talking about how we have heroes in our lives. All of us have heroes in our lives. We might not regard them as heroic because they might not fit to the classical form of heroes. But when we love each other, when we support each other through difficult times, we are being each other's heroes. And I know that might sound trite and somewhat cliched and sentimental, and I don't care, because I think it's a message worth thinking about. And it goes to one of the really interesting things that you'll see in Boland's poetry, in poems like This Moment, The Pomegranate, good examples, that really, I always feel, owes a debt to Patrick Kavanagh, another poet that you're studying this year. And Kavanagh's idea that we don't have to look out there to find wonder in the world. There's wonder all around us. We're just so used to it that we take it for granted. So I think that's a topic that's worth thinking about as we explore this poem. It is a narrative poem. It has a very distinct setting. If you look at the opening, she writes, "Dark falls on this Midwestern town where we once lived when myths collided." I really like that. Where we once lived. You can see it there. When myths collided. I love the alliteration of the W. There's a W there, a W there, and a W there. Where we, when. Creates a real rhythm and brings that line to the sharp focus for the reader. And then this very dramatic, when myths collided. So she's creating a sense of curiosity. Who's we? Where's the Midwestern town? What happened there that causes her to refer to myths colliding? Now, she's a narrative writer. She gets the fundamentals of all good storytelling, which is create curiosity in your reader at the beginning, because that will encourage them to keep reading. So that's clever. She goes on to talk about the dusk has hidden the bridge in the river, which slides and deepens to become the water the hero crossed on his way to hell. Now, let's talk for a moment about a little bit of context. When Boland was a young married woman with young children, her and her husband moved to Iowa, which is in the Midwest of the United States. And while they were there, and Iowa is famous for its rivers and its bridges, while they were there, one of their two children became really ill. And he was so ill that they thought he might die. That's a terrible crisis. When Boland now, years after the event, returns to visit this place where she used to live, she's reminded of how at that time her husband gave her the support that she needed to cope with the crisis. So when she says, when myths collided, she means that in her own life, she has had the need of a hero. And when that need was there, her husband was heroic. It's a really beautiful thing to say. The second stanza I love. It's my favourite stanza in the poem. Not far from here is our old apartment. Look at the simplicity of the language. We had a kitchen and an Amish table. We had a view. Look at those. There's a triad there in that line. You know what a triad is? A list of three. So we had a kitchen, an Amish table, a view. That list of three things in a very efficient way tells us a lot. The key thing for me is the symbolism of the Amish table. An Amish table is a piece of furniture which is very basic and simple. To have a kitchen is a basic, simple thing. To have a view is a basic, simple thing. What she's saying is, we were young and life was less complicated. We were young, we didn't have much materially, but we had each other and we had love. That's what she's saying in that wonderful little triad. And then you have the drama, because she juxtaposes the ordinary, the everyday, a kitchen, a table, a view, with the extraordinary, the crisis of the child's illness. And we discovered there that love had the feather and muscle of wings and had come to live with us, a brother of fire and air. It's a really brilliant image. It appeals to the visual sense. You can see this image, this personification of an abstract noun. Love is abstract. What is it? Can we pick up love? Is love something that we can hold in our hands? No, it's not. It's an idea. But here she says, love took physical form, and the physical form was the feather and muscle of wings. Think about wings and what they can do. If a bird is in danger, it opens its wings and it lifts itself out of danger. Love, she's saying, in this brilliant example of metaphor, helped them cope at the time of their crisis. In the third stanza, she goes on and tells us what happened. And again, the most simple and conversational language. And again, she deliberately is mixing in the poem, combining in the poem, the simple and the complex, the banal and the extraordinary. She says, we had 2 infant children, one of whom was touched by death in this town and spared. And then in the same line, without changing tack, with the same simple language, she moves off into the Aeneas myth. And when the hero was hailed, by his comrades in hell, their mouths opened and their voices failed, and there is no knowing what they would have asked about a life they had shared and lost. It's just really brilliantly interesting. You have to let go your need to understand logically what every word means. You have to play with the images in the way that Boland is playing with images. She's taking her life and she's connecting it to stories that are so important that they have become mythologies that are the very basis of European civilization. And in doing so, she's saying, our lives are special. We share things with the heroes. We can be heroic, but we also suffer and make the mistakes that the heroes have made. The reference to the hero being hailed by his comrades in hell is a reference to the story of Aeneas in the Aeneid. And the story, I'll keep it really brief, it's in the note, is that he went down into the underworld where the souls of the dead dwelt. This was in Greek and Roman mythology. But because he was alive and they were dead, they couldn't communicate. So when they tried to speak to him, he couldn't hear them. And when he tried to speak to them, they couldn't hear him. So we have an image of people who have shared battle. Aeneas and his comrades, they've been on a battlefield together, creating a bond that can never be broken. But even though that bond exists, distance can grow. Something fundamentally can change, which means that they can no longer connect. Now, this is a really marvelous and imaginative way of talking about what can happen in a relationship. Like Aeneas and his comrades, Boland and her husband are bonded for life. They're bonded for life because they love each other and because they've gone to battle with each other, for each other, back when their child was sick. That bond will never break. But like Aeneas and his comrades, time has fundamentally changed the nature of their relationship, and they don't talk to each other anymore, or when one speaks, the other can't listen. Something fundamental has changed. And the rest of the poem is an attempt by the poet to communicate with the husband who, don't forget what the poem is called, who she loves profoundly. She says in monosyllabic language, deliberately using monosyllabic language because she wants to be clear. She wants to be understood. She says, I am your wife. It's a brilliant line. I am your wife. Simple. She's telling him, I still identify. My identity is tied to my relationship with you. It was years ago. Our child was healed. We love each other still. She's saying, I love you. She's saying that she wants him to understand that she knows that he loves her. And because they don't talk or can't communicate at this point, she's writing the poem to express those thoughts. She says, we get on grand, we agree on what we're going to have for dinner, we go on holidays together, we maybe sit down and watch a movie. Across our day-to-day, everyday, ordinary distances, we speak plainly. We hear each other clearly. Everything's okay. Sorry, I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about the nature of relationships. She says, everything's okay day to day, but something is missing. And what she says is missing is communicated here in the second half of that stanza. And yet I want to return to you on the bridge of the Iowa River as you wear with snow on the shoulders of your coat. A car passing with its headlights on. It's a Hollywood cliched version of a hero. What does she mean? She wants to go back in time to when her child was sick. She wants to go back in time to when she needed her husband to be the man, out in the freezing cold with the snow on his broad shoulders, carrying the weight of responsibility. No. That's not what she means. What she means is she wants to feel that intensity again. She loves him, but things are stale. Something is missing. And she just wants to ask him Does he feel that too? That's what the poem is about. It's an attempt to communicate. It's not an attempt to say, people say, oh, she wants a divorce. She didn't. She loved her husband. She says, I am your wife. We love each other still. But she's saying, don't you miss that intensity of youth? She tells him she admires him. I see you as a hero in a text, the image blazing and the edges gilded. And I long to cry out the epic question, and again, proof of love, my dear companion, will we ever live so intensely again? And of course, that's a rhetorical question. She knows they won't, because relationships evolve and change over time, and that intensity that one has in a relationship when one is young, that becomes muted and diluted as time goes on, and children are born. Doesn't mean you don't love each other, just means things are different. Will love come to us again and be so formidable at rest, it offered us ascension even to look at him? A reference to that intensity again. The poem ends with this almost forlorn observation. But the words are shadows, and you cannot hear me. You walk away, and I cannot follow. I like the line that ends the poem. It's a line which suggests that she feels that this change that's happened in the relationship can never be reversed, in the same way as Aeneas's colleagues can never be born again. That there's a sadness that the distance between them will continue to grow, even though the love still exists. So it's not a poem with a happy ending. It's not a poem which, you know what it is? And I've always said this about Boland. It's a grown-up poem. It's a mature, thoughtful, honest, reflective poem in which she tells her husband, I love you, but I don't feel our relationship is perfect. And she asks him, what do you think? And I'm standing